Take it in.
I have to take this all in. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for being here. This is so awesome.
So much love, right?
Yeah.
And this is your first South by Southwest?
Yes, my first time here attending this. This is like a huge this, yeah.
It is, and we're so excited to have you here. And it's such an honor being a storyteller myself and someone that's very focused on passing the mic and telling stories that aren't being told. So I want to start off with this question. As a first-generation American of Latinx heritage, you're a successful working actor, a mom, superhero, multi-hyphenate. Why jump into starting a company and being an entrepreneur? Why was that important to you?
I wanted to contribute to the solution sort of action that needs to be taken every day. Our gatekeepers today in America don't really represent what the population, especially the population 35 and under, really looks like, which is predominantly multicultural. 40% of Americans today from age 0 to 100 is multicultural. In 1960, 15% of that was multicultural. And when you look at the general market and mainstream media, the way brands are marketing toward, to the consumer, there's a huge disparity. It's an imbalance because they're not really representing what the masses look like today. So we can spend so much time complaining about how there's a lack of diversity in our content, whether it's through entertainment or news media or academically or through science technology, or we can figure out how we can fill in these loopholes. So if 4% of content creators in media and producers are of Latinx heritage, that means that only 1% of the information that company or in general is making that is of Latinx context. And it's usually 2/3 of that 1%, it's super negative. It's either completely apathetic or completely sympathetic. And only 1/3 of that is positive. You sort of go, there's a misrepresentation. There's a huge imbalance because there's a growing population that is predominantly of Latinx origin that goes unseen every day. But it's massively mischaracterized right now, especially with the government currently. And you sort of go, we need to add that balance. We definitely need to add that balance. We have to tell stories that are universal, but stories that are positive, stories that cultivate aspiration. So that's why my husband and I felt really, really inspired after we had our sons, our twins first, to take action, upon ourselves and to do something about it.
And of course, you could have done something by encouraging a production you were part of or other directors, writers, but you decided to start your own company. Now, that's a huge leap.
Yeah. It's fun. It's a lot of work.
And we're going to get into that in a moment. What was your reaction to those crazy stats that you just shared? That data is pretty revealing as to where we're at as a society and in media.
I mean, a part of me was incredibly disappointed, but then again, it's like we've known this. You don't need a stat to tell you what you see every day when you turn on the TV, when you go to a museum, when you open up a history book at school. You're not there. You're not there, but you're just as American, you're just as patriotic. So it really compelled me to take action and to lose this notion. I don't have the power to change the world. I can't go against a huge establishment. But my singular voice has the ability to inspire people in my community, in my proximity, and then they do that, and they do that. Like, a legacy is not about an explosion overnight. A legacy is something that you are preparing. It's a purposeful life. It's something that you do today so that others, way after you're gone, are reaping those benefits. And I'm about a legacy. If a white man is entitled a legacy and a white woman is entitled legacy, guess what? Me too. I'm just as American, and I want a legacy for my family.
So let's talk.
I didn't mean to say white man. Like, I don't like to speak in those terms. I need to understand, like, I'm not about fighting anyway.
No.
We'll get into that later.
We do. We sense that. You're all about love, good energy, good vibes. So what stories are you seeing not being told for the Latinx community, and how are you approaching that within BESE?
Sure. I think we are all pretty familiar with the stories that are being told, where it's more often than not, it's a narco, it's a gang member, it's probably a farm worker, some illegal illegal immigrant or a maid. And I think given how large the Latinx community is, I mean, nearly 60 million people, and 2/3 of them are not born here. There's so much more to tell. There's so many more stories to tell. And we haven't been seeing that, and that's largely a function of a lot of the stats that Zoe's just described. And so it takes someone like Zoe to really take that initiative to create her own media company and to really push those stories forward and start telling them one story at a time. And so we're still in our infancy, but there's so much more to tell. But we already told 150 stories at BESE, and so that's only going to continue.
Yeah, and I wanted to add to that as well. Like, Alita is a movie that was very successful, that recently was released by one of your own and one of my own, because he's American of Latinx origin, Robert Rodriguez. And in the movie Alita, it's never pointed out Alita's race, but Alita clearly is not blonde, blue eyes, and she's our hero, and she's our AI hero. That is how we bring change, by finding our universalities and telling those stories just from the face of someone that isn't a traditional American. Old habits die really hard, but I do believe that we all have the ability to bring change, to broaden this narrative. In order for us as producers and content creators to be inspired to create this content, we need an audience that is urging to consume it. So it is also on you as consumers to say, you know what, this weekend, it is very important that I go see a movie like Alita, because I can sit and complain that not enough American Latino directors are being nominated at the Oscars. We just had one that, even though he wasn't nominated for an Oscar, he's fucking killing it in the box office. And we have to celebrate that. But how do we celebrate that? By supporting the contributions he's making and then amplifying that. So it is on us. We all really have the ability to bring change. While our government is getting their things together, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna try not to curse. We can start making change for ourselves and for our respective communities as well.
I love how passionate you are about all this, and it's real. This is not, you're not just doing this for a headline. It's in every part of you, which I know everyone sees, and it's amazing. And that's why I also feel starting a brand around that has been so authentic. Obviously, the focus is the Latinx community. What about other underrepresented communities, and how are you looking to move into that and represent, other facets and people out there?
Yeah, I think the way we kind of look at it right now is that Latinx is the tip of the spear. Mm-hmm. They're driving over half of population growth. So relatively speaking, they're the least represented, the most underrepresented. So we need to start there. But it's just the tip of the spear, because there's so many other stories and so many other underrepresented communities. So we've recently kind of shifted to almost like a 50-50 model, where half of our stories will have more of a Latinx origin or context. Mm-hmm. And the other half is anyone who's ever been othered. Any other underrepresented communities, whether that be Black, Asian, Middle Eastern,
LGBTQ,
disabled.
Community. It's about the other ones, because you're just as American. And I was always adamant about that. 59% of our audience for BESE, our followers, are of Latinx origin, but the rest of them are of everything else, and it makes me really happy. When you know what it's like to be othered, like you're not gonna. I don't just want to create a community just for me and for us. When I say the word us, I mean America. I mean everyone. Like, I don't just want to also create content for people 35 and under and exclude our older generations. I need my giants to see things the way things are today, and I need them to stop idolizing how the yesterdays were the good old days. They're not. They're really not. Like today, millennials and Gen Zs are really driving this narrative, and they're the ones that are dictating to us the way they want to be seen, the way they are identifying themselves, the way they want their country to be shaped for the better, the way they want their environment to be respected. And I think that, it's on us, everybody that's 35 and older, to instead of figuring out ways to talk to them, it's figuring out ways to listen, because that's going to be our true inspiration. It's about listening.
And why now? Why do you feel like there's urgency now to start this? And why in your career did you decide to get going with this project now?
I mean, I think half of that is also my life. Like I transitioned in my life, 5 years ago, where I got married, I had children, and all of a sudden the importance that I was putting on my career and this facade, this mask that I was living I was only catering to my professional life and not really feeding my personal. And when I started to focus much on my personal life and taking time off and enriching like my life, I realized, oh my God, there's so much underrepresentation. How can I, little me, contribute to the solution of this? And so it was that, and also research how these numbers are showing that the Americans of Latinx origin, which, back in the 60s, Latinos were, 2/3 foreign born and 1/3 American born. And today it's the opposite. 2/3 of Americans of Latinx origin are American, and their only language is English. So the way that consumers have changed, the way that we are, like I said, consuming information, consuming, brands, and it's different because America looks completely different than it did 40, 50 years ago. And when you turn on your TV, there isn't, we're still the best friends. We're still, either the apathetic character or the sympathetic character, but there's no compassionate portrayals of us where we're seen as giants. We're either victims or martyrs. And I'm like, I'm not a victim. I'm not a martyr. I'm the in-between. I'm the professional. I'm the American with a dream. I'm the American that wants a piece of American pie. And I'm like, where is that? Where are my American stories with my face on it there? So I thought, well, the time is now. And I think I just have to start something in hopes of encouraging leaders to sort of say, okay, I have to diversify our boardrooms in order for this content to broaden and it can best represent the American population.
Yeah, and you just mentioned the American dream. Do you still believe in the American dream?
I mean, absolutely. You're looking at it right here. I think you continue to see numerous examples of that, and I mean, one of our investors is Ralph de la Vega, who came as a young boy from Cuba, 10 years old, without his parents, and went on to become the CEO of AT&T Wireless. Like the American dream is certainly real. It's there. So yes.
I do believe I'm a patriot. I love my nation.
Okay, let's talk about some projects that you guys have done that you're proud of that you want to share. How are you deciding to take on the content you're doing?
And when we started Soft, I have to say, because we're not a media company or media platform that is into sensationalism or negative sort of angles to news. We're not news breaking media either yet. So we wanted to build trust. We wanted to sort of say, we come in peace, like this is what we have, these are our stories, and then grow from there according to the kind of, reception we were going to have. So for us, history is important because when you go to school, you're always taught that history is everything. So we wanted to sort of uncover all those giants in our American Latinx community that go every day completely unseen, that our children need to know about. So we created a show called Hidden Figuras, which obviously it's a play on the title of that movie, Hidden Figures, based on that book, and where we highlight these amazing figures that in the past really paved the way for our American community. So we started with that. We also, you can take it from there. I start going in circles.
No, but that's a great one to start with because that was actually the very first video that ever went viral for us was a video from that series on a woman named Jovita Idad. But I think I'm really excited about a number of projects we're working on. I'm really excited about some of these events that we're going to be doing. We're really excited about the idea of taking kind of the online to the offline, building that connection. We have a series called Breaking Glass that we're working on right now about what it kind of sounds like. These amazing women who are breaking glass ceilings in their respective fields, whether it be in fashion or in dance or in music. And then we're going to be doing an event in April for that. I'm excited about this opportunity to bring some of the Hidden Figuras videos into schools. That's something that we're exploring as well. 53% of kids K to 12 in America are now non-white, and so the education they're getting and the role models they're seeing aren't reflective of that demographic shift. So that's something we're super excited about doing. And just, we have other things kind of, brewing, but, we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, and where are you looking to put the content? Where are you focusing in terms of possibly, OTT or your own platforms or social?
Well, we started with social media because that's where people 35 and under are predominantly living in, and but now this year is about expanding into podcast and also going into long form and collaborating with your usual suspects of like streaming networks and regular networks and eventually studios as well.
And now, with a film like Roma and Alfonso Cuarón making history at the Oscars, who saw Roma here? I'm assuming, okay. I was hoping for some noise. I just got like, you guys are such good students. We have a lot of good students here. I was like, being the 5th Mexican filmmaker to win Best Director in 6 years, that's so huge. Does that mean we're going in the right direction?
I think we are. I do know that Alfonso Cuarón, was very adamant about this is for Mexico because he is a Mexican filmmaker, but he is still Latino, and that is inspiring. It's before we gave the Oscar to Martin Scorsese, we were giving it to Fellini, and I'm pretty sure that all these Italian Americans that were with the dream to be directors like Marty were looking at Fellini going, I'm gonna be like that. Oh, but he's not American, but he's Italian. You know what I mean? And I think that we have to look at our giants that way, that even though they're foreign born and there's a separation, there's a cultural separation there's still a silver lining that connects us. And the fact that there's a Mexican director up there speaking with an accent, I love, by the way, it's going to inspire all these American dreamers, with aspirations of becoming filmmakers and screenwriters and producers and everything. And they're gonna go, if he did it and he's from Mexico, then I can, I'm from Texas. I do believe that we must remain positive and we must remain half full, because the one thing we cannot afford to lose is what lies inside Pandora's box, which is hope. If we lose hope, we accept defeat and we stop trying. And fear and anger have one thing in common: they're paralyzing. Absolutely paralyzing. When you're angry, you sulk, you eat a pint of ice cream, you drink a beer, and you do nothing but complain. When you are afraid, you close your windows, you shut your door, and you don't want to know thy neighbor. Love keeps you curious. Love keeps you hopeful. And I do believe that we as an American society, the one thing we have against the old establishment is hope and absolute love. And we have to protect that. And we have to nurture that. And we have to pass it down to our young. That is really important.
You almost make me cry. I was feeling like we're going to tear up here.
Welcome to my club. We cry every day. Okay.
Were you always this hopeful and positive?
Yeah. Are you kidding me? I'm a first generation of immigrants. I was raised by brave people. It takes bravery to leave everything behind and throw yourself into the unknown, because what you're leaving behind is hopeless. Hope is what drives an immigrant on that pilgrimage to take their children and try to immortalize their life and their culture through a legacy. So we are a country that is based on immigration. And I was raised, my mother and my grandmother, they may have limited academic education, but my God, are they wealthy people. They are wealthy spiritually, and they were always happy and grateful. And if it wasn't for that, if my mom would have taught me the adversities that I was going to face, oh, you know what, people are gonna look at you and they're gonna take, because you're a Black woman and you're Latina and it's not gonna be easy, then you know what? I'm gonna go to my first job site and I'm gonna apply for going, you know what, I know I'm Latina. And my mother always, still to this day, tells me every time I walk out the door, Zoe, I hope you like them. And it was a phrase that I would roll my eyes when I was a teenager going, what the fuck is she saying? I hope you like them. I would rattle my brain in the elevator, like leaving her apartment going, what was that? And then one day it hit me as I left an audition with a douche of a director. A douche of a director. And I remember going, oh my God, I completely ruined it. I'm not gonna get this part. I'm not gonna get this part. Wait a minute. He was an a-hole. He was so rude. He was so, I didn't like it. I don't wanna work for him. I wouldn't wanna work with him. And then it all hit me. I hope you like them. You matter. Your opinion about somebody else matters just as much as what they have to think about you. So even though we came here as immigrants and we had nothing, my family came as that, every time they looked at somebody, it was with their chins raised because they had dignity, they had every ounce of willingness to work and do anything to put food on the table, and they were good citizens. They respected America, they respected thy neighbors, and I'm like, everything about that is what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be my mother.
So awesome. With media and how they're taking on, as you mentioned, the pilgrimage, the experience, how do we change the narrative? Because what you share and your energy and your spirit, I'm not seeing that in the news. I'm not seeing that, obviously, in possibly the government or in some leadership right now. So how do we change the narrative?
I mean, and you could also add to that, but there are different ways that you can change the narrative. I'm doing it. And when I think about myself as this little speck of sand in this sea of that we call life, yes, I'm just a little speck of sand. But if I'm doing it, I can trust that there are millions of me that are doing the same. So I can only focus on my journey, and I can amplify to the best of my abilities. And I know that, so that's how we can do it. Amplify good messages. Stay curious. Sit with someone of a different political party than you and try to understand why they feel the way that they feel. Look at this situation that we're having, this immigration situation that we're having, and compare it to the immigration situation that happened during World War I and World War II, when Europe was coming by the masses on a boat. And compare it and see where and why you think it falls short of deserving of a right to live better. And try to find that definition for yourself. Don't have other establishments that are mischaracterizing and generalizing and of negative connotations dictate your views if you know deep down you haven't researched it enough to have a view on something. So stay curious and welcome, what is the word that we say? I usually say it in Spanish, conversación, welcome discourse. It's break bread with a stranger and welcome discourse, because that is the only way that we're going to grow spiritually as an American society, is by just asking why and just respecting if that opinion is completely different from us. And then if you believe that you are aligned with what you just learned today or what that stranger had to provide, then amplify it. Share it. Share that knowledge. That is the only way that we're going to infect truth across our nation, by keeping connected.
Yeah, I mean, I was just add to kind of those 2 points, curious and amplification. I mean, really, data goes so far, and it's fact. It's not fake news. And so, I mean, the narrative that's around as pertains to the Latinx community, for example, they're poor, they're uneducated. I mean, the reality is, college enrollment is at parity now with whites. They're driving a quarter GDP growth. They make up almost 90% of new business formation. They're driving
and mortgages.
Over 50% of mortgages, and the number of households that make over 200 grand a year has quadrupled in the last 10 years. It's really shifting. You're seeing it actually in the way that it happened with the Italian immigrants and the Irish immigrants. It's happening right now with the Latinx community, and that's a very different narrative than what's out there now. And so knowing the facts and then sharing those facts, that's how you help change the narrative in addition to the storytelling that we're doing.
And with media changing so much lately, how do you build scalable, monetizable, and sustainable models in media, and including with what you're doing at BESE?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenging time right now, especially in digital media. I think one of the ways we're going about it, I think one is measured growth. Being careful how much we're spending, how many people we're hiring, trying to really control that. I think the second really important thing is diversified revenue models. It's something I've been a big believer in for a long time. I think it's the by far the best way for any digital media company to survive. Jonah Peretti at BuzzFeed just said 3 days ago that $100 million in revenue they generated last year was from new businesses that didn't exist in 2017. So he's actually proof of the importance of diversification of revenue. And so and I would say the third thing is really finding that building community, building like a deeper connection with your audience. Mm-hmm. I think you can't be bland. You can't be generic. You got to build the brand. You got to build the following, build the audience. Establish that trust. And I think when you do that over time, there's going to always be ways to monetize that.
Experience too. We want, there's that desire to connect, like we were talking about. And we can only do that by being physically present for an event or for a conversation. So, when we sit with brands, they just keep talking about experiential. And we're like, what is that? Like concerts? But it's galleries, it's congregation. Yeah. It's congregating on a common goal of just sharing information and networking, like South by Southwest is actually.
Feeling the energy in the room, IRL. And yeah, speaking of brands, you do work with a lot of brands. So how is BESE working in the brand space right now?
I'm gonna let you be nice.
Yeah, look, I think we literally had our 1-year anniversary a week ago in publishing, 2 weeks ago, and it was really one of those things where in 2018 it was about building the platform, building the voice, the look, the feel, starting to create the content we wanted to create and tell the stories we wanted to tell. We're now finally having in earnest real brand partnership conversations. The only one of which I could probably disclose right now is that we did a partnership with Toyota, who's sponsoring this Breaking Glass series I was mentioning earlier. That will be culminate in a live event. But the idea is that we could partner with brands and harmonize what we're doing with their marketing initiatives or their objectives, and then bring that to our audience that through a medium and a brand that really matters and that's really going to feel authentic to them. And that's a way for brands to be able to tap into that. But we're also very careful that we never, the integrity of the BESE brand is never, messed with. So.
And I do want to be a little more transparent with you, because the reason why we come and we have these conversations is just so we can speak as much truth as possible based on our experience. It is challenging to get brands to really look at a platform like BESE and assist it and partner with it so that it can scale, and then also the brand can also benefit. I think that if brands continue to diversify their leadership roles, also, I think it's super important because you can't be sending a brand like BESE that understands that the general market's face and identity has shifted since the 1960s, but then that brand sends you to the Department of Multicultures that have a very limited budget, that already have their slate for the next fiscal year, and they don't know where you may fit in. You sort of go, come on, like if we're talking, we can't have the conversation that Americans, 40% of Americans are now multicultural, and that is our general consumer, basically, because he's the young one that's really consuming. You can't have that conversation at the same time and then go, oh, BESE, it's like an ethnic brand, right? Yeah, if you see us ethnics as the general market, yeah. So I feel like we're trying, and we get really excited when we have that kind of positive reception from well-known, established brands that are diversifying their leadership, roles, and they get it, and they're curious, and if they don't have it figured out, they're asking questions. So the same way I'm pointing out that it's presenting its challenges, we're not going to stop trying, and we are going to find those partnerships with those brands that are not going to stop trying either. So it's a two-effort thing.
That. Thank you for being so honest. What other challenges or obstacles have you had in being an entrepreneur and running a startup?
I mean, I'm just gonna, you know what? You're just asking a lot. When you go to like equity firms and they want to invest in your business because you bring them the idea of a promise that you're gonna bring celebrities. That is such an old way of scaling something. As if like you're gonna have like a big Vin Diesel come in and like you shake your hand and all of a sudden like you become like this explosive brand. Instead of just seeing the one person's in front of you that's saying, I am committed to this, like I'm not gonna give up. I'm not gonna, go into my contact list and bring in my neighbors and my friends. Like I'm not gonna do that because they're not gonna come. You know what I mean? Like, let's just build with what we have. And also, another thing, too, is that millennials and Gen Zs, that's not the way they want you to talk to them. They don't want you to come in with and impress them and amuse them. They want you to relate to them by saying, the 3 R's. I relate with you. What is it? The RIE method? I'm a parent, so obviously I'm always listening to those podcasts about parenting. Is that respectful, intelligent, and empathetic way of sort of going, I see you, I hear you, and I'm going to be you. Like I'm gonna try to the best of my abilities to empathize and to have compassion for you. Anyway, I babbled. I don't even know what.
No,
Did I
love
answer
it.
the question?
I hear you. Yeah, you just don't want to present a VIP party, right? You want someone to present something real.
Yeah, and sometimes that's what they want. So we're like, I don't even know how to bring that forward. It's crazy.
Like I'm not bringing the cast for my movie here right now. What talent, digital or otherwise, would you love to collaborate with on BESE?
All. Everyone. But I don't,
And it could be also
telling-
behind the scenes. It could be in front.
I think that right now I'm really into helping BESE grow from a journalistic, is that the right word? Okay, place where we're not, like I said before, we're not breaking news yet, but I have a duty with the 2020 elections and one of the only Latinx platforms or American multicultural platforms in America that cater to millennials and Gen Zs primarily. I have a duty to be somewhere that is of relevance, where whatever it is that I have to say, or whoever it is that wants to come on my platform to say it, I have an audience that is dying for that information, and I have people that are dying to say something. So my mission is to expand the media aspect of collaborating with amazing journalists that need a platform that can amplify their conversations, because we can't just be a platform that tells great stories while we have a population that is suffering, that needs solutions, that is needing information on how they can better their lives, how they can vote better, how they can be better American citizens, and we're not catering to that. So my mission in 2019 is to do that through podcasts, through hosted series, and right now we started collaborating with Paola Ramos, who is an amazing journalist, and she's royalty in my eyes because she is the daughter of Jorge Ramos, and he's one of the most amazing journalists that we have ever had. And yes, he is Latino, but he is here in the States as an amazing journalist, and his daughter is walking, kind of trekking her own journey for herself. So we're collaborating with her, and the hopes are to have others like her and have maybe 20 journalist hosts that are, kind of like looking to, to have a show and a series, and they get to sort of have, what they say on our platform. I keep beating on a dead horse. You guys.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is, also kind of that behind the camera, like the producers, to the stat that Zoe brought up early on about less than 2% of producers in media are of Latinx heritage. Mm-hmm. That means there's a lot of talent undiscovered out there. There's a lot of folks who just need that opportunity, and they need that opportunity to be able to, to be groomed and to be trained and, develop those skill sets. And so that's really, really important to us as well. And then I think, obviously we're always open to working with larger names. The wonderful thing about building a brand and doing it in a really authentic way is we're now getting inbound requests asking us to do videos with them because they like how we, our approach and how we told that story and that truth. And so that it really kind of is, really the whole gamut.
Yeah. What pioneers and change makers have you looked up to in history?
I mean, I have a list here, and these are figures that I have to say that half of them I discovered when we created this series, Hidden Figuras. But we have, we've told stories about Bill Melendez, who's an animator, and he illustrated the whole Peanut series. And he's of Mexican origin. We have Jovita Haddad, who was a teacher in the early 1900s and a journalist in Texas, who stood up for freedom of press and speech. And she was talking about the Texas lynchings that were happening for Tejanos back in that time. We have Maria Montes, who was an actress in the 40s of Dominican origin, and she was considered the queen of Technicolor. We didn't know that. Like, we have our own, queen of Technicolor. We have Fred Korematsu, who, he sued the U.S. government for unlawful imprisonment of an American back when Japanese Americans were forced into internments after Pearl Harbor. And Fred Korematsu, even though he lost, he took his case, and it reached all the way up to the Supreme Court. And he is somebody that we need to really know about, because that was one of the biggest effing, mistakes that America ever did towards a huge, ethnic group. So, and we have Jose Castellanos, which I know he's your favorite. You can talk about Jose Castellanos.
Well, yeah. Do you want to talk about him?
He's a little bit.
When I discovered him, I was so inspired. He was a Salvadorian diplomat during World War II, and he through the embassy in Switzerland in El Salvador, he gave anywhere between 10 to 40,000 Jews El Salvadorian citizenship so they could escape Europe during that time. So he saved tens of thousands of lives, and not very many people know his story. The way people know Schindler's story. And I also am a big fan of Sylvia Mendez and her family, who desegregated California 8 years before Brown versus Board of Education, which was used as precedent to win that case. A Puerto Rican, Mexican family. Incredible thing they did for U.S. history, but just really kind of unknown. Those are the kind of stories that we're trying to unearth.
So I host a show for Channel Q, one of the first LGBTQ plus music and talk stations out there. And I love how you've been open about gender roles at home and raising your kids as gender neutral. Why decide to speak up about that amidst many of the things you speak up about?
Oh, because I come from two cultures, my Latino culture, my American culture, where masculinity is the center of the dinner table. And my husband too, who's an Italian immigrant, it's the same way. If you look at Fellini movies, he and I have two different point of views about Fellini, but I have to respect his, of course. But the objectification of women never really had a voice outside of their households. So men, in a way of compensating that, they made them the queens of the house. But that also gave men the excuse to not engage in parenting, tasks day to day. So your father was this antagonist, a figure that was tired and came home from work. You shouldn't disrupt him. You're the boss. You command everything. But as soon as you would get in the car and you would go outside and have a pizza with your family, you would see how your mom became this quiet, creature, and your father was this lively thing. So, and then this whole thing of patriarchy and matriarchy, I was always caught in between that. Loud and angry mothers at home in the kitchen, and super loud and obnoxious fathers, machos outside of the house. And I'm like, where's that medium? And it wasn't until my husband and I were in the kitchen with our kids. We have 3 boys, God help us.
Yeah. Oh, bless your heart.
The irony too, we've accepted the challenge. And one of our children is asking Papa for something, and Papa goes, no, talk to Mama. Mama's the boss. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know why, but that doesn't sit well with me. I don't want to be the boss. I don't want to be I don't want to be the asshole and you're the fun one. Because then when he grows up, he's only going to want to do fun things. And he's like, that's not going to happen. I'm like, who's the fun one in your family? He goes, my Papa. But meanwhile, who taught you how to wipe your butt? Who fed you, brush your teeth? The unsung hero is the mother. I'm like, not in my life. If I'm going to be the hero, I'm going to be celebrated by my children. If I'm going to be the one putting all the work, guess what? You are too. You're not going to come home and be the clown and disrupt what took me all day to build. You're going to come home and you're going to roll your sleeves and you're going to put these kids to bed with me. Because I need to have that glass of wine. So we do that. We have this gender fluidity at our house. Also because, guys, like after the Me Too movement, it's on us, families of boys, to raise the next batch of these men. We have a big task, and it's a beautiful task. We have to allow our boys to be sensible. We have to allow our boys to be afraid, to age at their own pace. We have to teach them to communicate verbally and not fight. We have to teach them to automatically respect women. And the only way that we're going to do that is by what they're able to see more than what they're able to hear. So, that's how we always remind ourselves that it's on us to raise the next generation of amazing men.
I mean, I wanted to clap to that. With everything happening socially, politically, everything you're passionate about, I love, obviously, you're creating content, you have a platform. How do you encourage action, including going into 2020?
How do I encourage action?
Going from content to actually action and moving the needle.
It's a tough one.
Think about it, yeah.
Yes. Even though we prep these questions, we need to think about it.
Look, how do we encourage? I think starting with just telling those stories that aren't going being told. I think that right there motivates people to continue now to raise their voice and to tell their story as well. It kind of creates a network effect. Talking about the issues that matter. And showing those different perspectives that you're not necessarily seeing, they're really kind of disparate today. And we're trying our best not to be a political platform, and we're trying to stay away from that fray because we do want to be very inclusive, and we want to have discourse. We want to present different perspectives, and we want to stay at the issue level for now. And so our view is, okay, well, let's talk about the issues that matter to you, and then let you decide how you want to vote. That's on you, but we're going to just present the facts. We're going to present these different perspectives, and I think that alone will help motivate people to take action.
Yeah, adding a counterbalance to the imbalance that exists today is as a call of action. I think that I'm going to try to answer that from different points of views. Like if you're an entrepreneur and you have a media company, I don't diversify your content, and not just, not an 80-20. Try to look at the American demographic and try to look at what is the age range of our people, and then of our audience or whatever, and then kind of go, instead of having an 80-20 approach or a 90-10, have a 60-40. Don't be the last to jump on a trend, be the first to set it. And I tell that to entrepreneurs, I tell that to brands. We just sat, today in the green room with an amazing executive that works at Smart Water, and they're taking that step. They're diversifying their content, because it is so important that if you're a little kid that's growing up in urban America and you don't have access to decent food because the nearest restaurants around you are fast food, you have no content on TV who's your babysitter that truly represents you and is teaching you something. Your teachers are on strike because they're underpaid and overworked. Be that brand and be that brand that sells to them something healthier. Even though that's supposed to be the invisible demographic, make them visible. See them first so they learn to see themselves. So don't sell them their high fructose things. Be the one that sells them the smart healing thing. Because when a child is well fed and well hydrated, that child has a much higher ability to learn something and to keep that information and apply it for their lives. So it's on us, actually. Whether you're an entrepreneur, you're just a everyday person, you're a brand, you're a celebrity, you're whatever, it's on us. Diversify your content, diversify it.
So we have actually 14 more minutes for questions. If anyone has a question, go to the mic, please. Yeah, you have to go nicely to the mic in a line. Say your name, where you're from, and your question. Okay, I'm happy we got to that quickly.
Hi, Zoe. Hi, Daniel. Hi. I'm Beatriz. I'm from Puerto Rico. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context before I go right into the question. So a week ago, I left everything. I left everything behind to start over because I want to pursue my passion and I want to pursue my dream, right? So I am launching my own business to help small and medium organizations around the world how to change a narrative, to really shift culture, to build inclusive communities, to have a positive social impact in the world. And to be fair, that may seem easier for me because I'm an American citizen. Yet, I feel like an immigrant every single day for how Puerto Rico has been treated for the last 100 years and how we're forgotten every single day, way before Hurricane Maria. So I want to talk about the American dream and how bullshit I think it is. Because it only seems achievable by a very small group of people and not by the others. So how do you take an old notion that you have to work hard to make it happen, to make it inclusive, and to really make it relevant to 2019?
Thank you.
How do we make that happen?
What was your question again?
Yeah. I mean, that was...
What needs to happen to be able to dismantle the American dream to make it relevant and inclusive in 2019?
By building your business. Just build it. I'm building mine. Of course, I have an uphill battle. I'm going against a 500-year-old establishment. Yeah, it's hard, but it has to be done. Just build it.
All right, next question.
Hi, how are you? My name is Destiny Mentor. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, by way of Trinidad.
Caribe!
Hey. And my question is, firstly, thank you all for coming, obviously, but also, Zoe, I so admire the way you are genuine and authentically you in everything I've ever seen you, and you're someone I've looked up to for a very long time, so firstly that. But also, as someone who's a couple years into their career and, you know, working in a male-dominated industry and often being the only one in the room and trying to bring my story of being a child of immigrants and being from a low-income family and being a black woman and recognizing the beauty and honor and the privilege of opening the door for people behind me, what were tools that you had early in your career to make sure you were being authentic to your story, but also speaking up for yourself and making sure you left that door open?
Education. Yes, there's a common ground between you and I. First generation, daughter of immigrants, growing up in Queens. For 1 year we were on food stamps. Like all that is, but those weren't the only roles I wanted to play. I'm an artist, I'm versatile, I'm a chameleon. In order for me to step outside of myself and be able to be Gamora or to be Neytiri, to be not just be an entrepreneur, not just be a human character, but just be of a different color from a different planet, from a different galaxy, that takes education. and I do believe that we really have to invest time in education. So when I talk about curiosity, it expands across a spectrum that you have to define for yourself. But please make sure that you leave a chunk of that for education, because what you don't know, you can't do. You know?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sebastian. I'm from Guatemala. And I was wondering, you were talking about changing the narrative of the Latino, but how can we change the narrative to the actual countries, to the Latino countries, Colombia, Guatemala, Mexico, Puerto Rico? How can we change the narratives around those?
Deep questions here in the session.
You just have to build media. Right now, the one thing that people 35 and under have power in is social media. So your phone gives you the ability to tell so many old establishments to F off. So you have to make sure that the information that you curate for yourself and that you amplify is going to bring betterment to your community. So I do encourage young people, young generations, such as, the young lady that stood up from Puerto Rico, if media and technology is the future, then please explore that. And maybe that's a way for you to bring change in your nations. I did a movie years ago in Puerto Rico. I'm talking about like over 10 years ago, a film called The Losers. And my sister and I, we on our weekend, we would get, any supplies that the crew and people in that community where we were in San Juan, were donating, and we would go to these shelters of battered women, and that got me sort of talking to the experts and everything that were holding the shelter, and we learned that the capital punishment for a man that hits and beats a woman to death or rapes a child is 5 years. The capital punishment. America doesn't dictate that to Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico has to set that for itself. So we as a young generation, we have to amplify great messages, and we have to stand together to do that. And like I said, it's an uphill battle, but we got to do it if we want to bring change. I lived in Dominican Republic. I know how it is in Latin America, and it's very difficult, but it has to happen.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Okay.
Hey, that was a very inspiring panel. As much as I want to ask my question about boys, because I have 2 boys and I'm fascinated by that whole conversation, I'm going to ask about women. So as far as your content, I understand that it's mostly focused on, underrepresented communities, but how much of that is focused on women content creators?
We have a staff of 9.
Yeah, right now, 10 total right now.
Only 2 are male. So all the content that you have been, if I'm privileged enough to have had you see, content of BESE, it's been built predominantly by women, and women DPs, women producers, women writers, women editors. Martina, who's from Mallorca, she's our executive editor. So we're doing it. BESE is a company that we're drinking our own Kool-Aid. We're not just asking you to drink it, we're drinking it as well, and we like it.
Awesome. Will you be our keynote at our next event?
Well, it depends on the event.
It's pretty awesome. Can I talk to you afterwards?
Sure.
Hi, my name is Fig O'Reilly, and I'm an acid data nut. My question is on inclusivity. So when I go to work, even though we have about 30 to 40% women on our team, I know that I'm the only black woman in the room. So how do you guys ensure that you have inclusivity for women across all demographics?
I mean, I think we checked that list, like I mentioned before. We have somebody that's from a different country in Latin America, or originated from. I'm gonna talk from the standpoint of, like, let's say if I've worked for a studio and I'm talking to maybe like the wardrobe department, or the production department, or whatever. And I could be doing a movie in Atlanta, which we know is predominantly African American, and none of our crew is. Maybe 2 or 3 people are of color. And the advice that I've given them is, sponsor internships. Because the excuse that we've gotten from our agency when the whole Me Too thing was happening, and we got emailed by the whole Time's Up organization, because they blasted these emails to all of us people in Hollywood saying, go to the heads of your agencies and ask them how they're looking to be 50-50 by 2020. And there was what we were getting was like, it's hard, we go to colleges and nobody wants to do it and whatever. And it's like, offer internships. It's like, hey, I know that you weren't thinking about doing this, but do you want to do this for a summer? See if you like it? If you start with an internship, I became an actress because I was an intern. This program that is no longer, in existence in New York helped so many of us New Yorkers up until the early 2000s to find placements during our high school years. If we already had all of our credits accumulated and we had taken all our AP classes, which obviously I did, and I didn't want to go to school. My school was overpopulated. So I would go to these internship programs. It was thanks to that I was able to get my feet wet on acting, that I realized from ballet, classical ballet, which I'm losing a passion for, I'm going to transition into acting because I already had gained experience in it. So internships is what you can go to your superiors and say, this summer, and don't only suggest it, find it. Find that organization, find that non-for-profit that they can affiliate with and kind of go, and by the way, I found this great place, internship. They intern all these kids from all these schools. We can have them for a summer. We can grade them. It'll be amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Richard Hargraves. This has been very eye-opening. Thank you so much. So we have best friends that are mixed race. So their children have to select the box other. We have their 11-year-old daughter really looks up to you because of the powerful women you play in your roles. So she is studying right now at 11 years old to be a president of the United States. That's all she wants to do. Yeah. Do you have any advice for her?
Keep studying. You're not an other, you're an American. You're not another. Always tell yourself you're not another. You're an American.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's over. We had 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
We have 2 minutes. One
2
more
minutes
question.
and 50 seconds. One more
we got
question.
2 minutes, 47 seconds.
Oh. No.
Hi, my name is Nigeria Thompson. I live in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm originally from St. Louis. My question was, as a Black woman, your platform is predominantly for Latino people. How do you plan to bridge the gap between Black and Latino people? Because there's a lot of disparity between us, especially when it comes to the Dominican people and the Haitian people. How do you plan to use your platform to change that narrative? Sorry.
No, it's okay. I love it. Are you kidding me? I welcome discourse. I do understand that there is a gap, and there is also a gap within the African American community towards darker Blacks, and also a gap in the Latino community towards darker Latinos. Hello, I should know. But cross-pollination. So if there are other platforms, which I follow someone like Sean King, and I think that he's an activist with a lot of intelligence, and he is very sophisticated in how he speaks about justice, especially for his community, his African American community. I've reached out to him. When he launches the Northern Star, which was that very first Black newspaper in the 1900s, he wants to revamp it. He wants to launch it in digital media. I will be ready to reach out to him so that we can find ways to create content to bridge this gap.
Second question. How do you make us relevant to the other people in the room? Because there were people that were on their phones not paying you attention. As a powerful Latino woman, giving this information to us to make everyone relevant all at the same time. How do you make them see us?
Just keep talking. Relevant? I have 3 boys. You think they listen to us? Doesn't mean that I'm not gonna talk. I tell this to my mother all the time because Latinos are about give me your attention, be erect, listen to me. My mother is so antiquated that way. I'm like, Mom, they're boys. They have the attention span of a freaking hamster. Now they're 4. It's okay, keep talking. They're still receptive.
Thanks,
at the end of the day, you can look at your phone, but you're here, and I think that you never got up. So I'm half full. So.
Yeah. 30 seconds, so I don't know. I think I'm supposed to wrap this up. Is there someone from? Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up. Where can people find out more? BESE, tell people where to follow, everything.
Sure, it's BESE.com, BESE, at BESE on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, / BESE on YouTube. I think it's at BESE official on Twitter, but yeah.
But we're going to start to expand on Twitter this year. So if you find it and you don't see much, don't be disappointed. We were going to get to Twitter anyway in 2019.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to South by Southwest. Give it up for Daniel Batista and Zoe Saldana, everyone. Have a great rest of your time. Keep creating, changing the narrative. Thank you.